Hey everyone, welcome to another live stream. Today, we're going to answer the internet because everywhere I turn, someone is sending an email, leaving a comment, sending a pigeon, whatever, any method they can get to me to say, Corey, do something about the Lacey Act. And my response is, there's nothing to do. So, I've actually made a whole video on this. It went like 40 minutes long. We've actually condensed it down a little bit. I'm going to release that as a members only video so you can hear my full take on it. But mostly what I want to touch on is I think a lot of people are trying to drum up sensationalism where sensationalism isn't necessarily needed, right? So if you've been around a while, the industry has been fighting against this Lacey Act or the changing of it or the rules or whatever you want to call it for as long as I've been in the hobby. And so if you don't know what it is, basically it states don't bring illegal stuff into the country, release it in the wild, have some overseeing government in varying degrees, whether it's fish, reptiles, animals, right? And in the video, I go through the 6 pages out of the 3,000 pages, like line by line and things like that, and nuances and things. But there are a lot of people making blog articles and videos and like, the tropical fish hobby will no longer exist after this passes and things like that. And I think that is not the realistic view that we will see. Now, I want to give a warning because people are going to get into politics and I will just ban you. So just know, I'm strictly talking about fish currently. I don't want to hear about what your opinion is on the current state of really anything political. But as it pertains to this, I actually do think we need more regulation on fish. Now, I realize that most people go, oh, but that's going to ruin the hobby. If you actually read into the language, there is a lot of room to ruin the hobby. There's also a lot of room to save lots of invasive acts from happening. When most laws go into effect, we actually don't know what their final form will be. Lots of changes happen. There's lots of talk about, well, once you give them an inch, they take a mile. Yes, all of these things could happen. I could get hit by a plane today that crashed into this building. There's always the worst possible case scenario. I'd also like to highlight that there is a big potential for fixing things that have been plaguing the hobby for a long time, right? So for many, many years, as long as I've been in the hobby, I couldn't own an Asian arowana. And this act has to do with kind of a black and a white list. And so right now, if you can't own something in the state you're in, it's on a list, and I'm going to call that the blacklist. We wrote the name down, you can't own that, right? This law would change it to now you can't own it unless it's on the white list. So what does that mean? That means that your state might have 50 things right now you can't own. And after this passes, now it has to be on a list. Well, so if there's 50 things you can't own and 5,000 you can own, those 5,000 things are going to need to go on the can own list. Now this gives us a chance to also go, hey, turns out an Asian arowana isn't invasive still. We could let that through, add that onto the list. We might get to keep Asian arowanas. It could also mean though that nothing gets added to that white list and we can't keep any fish, right? That's the big fear. However, there is language in this bill that gives me reason to believe that there is at least a little foresight into this, that is not their intention. And that would be the fact that, like, the first clause that would put something on a white list would be that it's already being sold in the United States above minimum quantities. The big scary thing is minimum quantities isn't defined, right? So if minimum quantity is 2.8 trillion, guess what? Nothing's on the list. But if that minimum quantity is 1,000, all of a sudden, most everything's on the list, right? So while we don't know what that number will be, we don't know in which way it's going to change it, you know, it remains to be seen. What I do like, though, is it does give some power for someone, an organization, to step in and go, hey, this is invasive. We can make a judgment here that says, let's stop the importing of this thing. And part of it says, open it up to public comment. And then we can resolve if this thing is truly invasive or not. Now, what does that process look like? Does that take 5 years? Does that take 10 minutes? Does that take $5,000 in the pocket from a big company to someone else? Who knows, right? But it does give the ability to stop that, because we do have invasive species, right? And there is shady things that go on in other countries and in our own countries and things like that. And this only really mostly affects the United States, but it will affect other countries too, especially if we can't import something. Now someone's lost a job. There's lots of implications with things like this. That being said, many things change. And, you know, what if I get elected to oversee that? It's going to be way different than if you get elected to oversee that, right? I don't think we're going to allow a total collapse of the hobby. And the hobby, when I mentioned that, would be fish keeping, reptile keeping, bird keeping. All of these are included. I don't think they're, you know, I think someone has gone, excuse me, do you realize that this would completely wipe away all of this industry? And they're probably like, yes, we don't intend for that to happen. Instead, we're intending for something else to happen. And I do believe that there should be some changes. I think that the worst thing we can be doing right now as a hobby is going, please call your senator, spam everybody you know that says no. Because when you tell someone no, that doesn't help them get the answer. Because I do believe we need to make sure we don't just ruin all of our natural waterways. I think that's a thing. And so if someone's proposing a solution and you say no, I think it's our duty to go, well, not that, but how about this or this solution? Or could we get the minimum threshold identified before we were to vote on this? Or could we, like, so if you contact someone and you're trying to sway them, give them a reason why, instead of, well, this thing's bad, a bunch of people said it would ruin the hobby, but what are your talking points on, well, how is it going to ruin the hobby? Because if you just say, well, no, it's going to ruin it, and they go, well, no, right here it says if it's already being sold, it'll continue to be sold. You should have the foresight to go, well, yes, if those thresholds are below this. We also have some problems with potentially, you know, a lot of people bring up the L number plecos, right? Like, well, they don't have Latin names, and there's all these studies are going to have to go on. And my counter to that is, yeah, shouldn't we? Right? Shouldn't we identify things more? And shouldn't we understand if things are going to be threatening to us as humans or the environment or where they're coming from and things like that? The reality is yes. And I think what we forget about is we're literally talking about a hobby here. Whether you and I keep fish is not a life or death thing for us. Now, is it something that I enjoy? Do I make my living off of it? Yes. Do I hope that it is done in a meaningful way and the hobby is better for it? I hope for all of those things. And I don't think the answer is, though, let's just railroad this and never address it, because that does lead to eventually us getting a worse result, right? I think this, you know, I take these things as like, this is a first step to, okay, well, yeah, let's work on this. And, you know, let's say it does pass and the worst possible outcome, nothing's on the whitelist, right? Okay, well, now we have lots of industries affected. They'll be lobbying, right? They'll be going, hey, can we get some of this stuff on? And the fear will be, you know, that, okay, well, only Petcos and PetSmarts are going to do it. Another fear, like L.R. Brett's saying, rare rainbows, I know, will be hit hard. But you don't, because someone could take that under their wing. The problem is no one actually knows what will happen. You could have someone with lots of money fund all the studies and all of them are in. You could have it so that Oh, maybe there's a fish farm that's going to fund it all. You could have it so that things are described and now it's working. You could have it so that there's an exemption for everything that's already in the United States. You could have it so that they say, okay, well, we're going to look at the numbers of fish that were sold and traded and moved around, and we'll be looking at that at this date, everything before that. And so someone who wants to have a rare rainbow on the list imports 20,000 of them because that's the threshold. I don't know what the threshold will be. The thing is, there's a lot of us walking around as hobbyists going, I know what's going to happen. And the reality is none of us know what's going to happen. We can all speculate on what might happen. I find a lot of us are focusing on all the negative things that could happen, and we're not focusing on things that could be good that could happen, right? There's a lot of countries in the world that have kind of white lists, and maybe they've done it incorrectly, or you go, well, they can't keep as many species as we can. Sure. That's not necessarily a bad thing, though. Like, the reality is, if we didn't get some of these rare rainbows into the United States, how detrimental is that? Not very. I will keep a different fish, right? And you could say like, oh, well, what about like goodeids? We reintroduce them into the wild and save them. Sure. But I also think there'll be scientific ways to do this as well. Just like we can keep endangered species in a zoo, right? We can't do that as a hobbyist. There will be ways that will be ironed out, draft after draft, that will address most of these situations. We might go, we can't keep this, but now we can keep that. There's things that are scary in there, like, for instance, they're saying that because it's federal, the worry is that something that would be illegal in Florida would also be illegal in Washington. Two completely different climates. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but as a first draft, that might be what it is, right? And then we can refine from there. And you know, if it's Oscars or lionfish or pick a species, right? If they're truly, or snakehead or a different crayfish, if they're truly being very detrimental in a state and ruining a wild population, is that worth keeping it in other states, right? We have to ask ourselves that. And that's kind of the big question is, on one hand, we can stand up and say, some of the hobbyists go, we should never be taking fish from the wild. It ruins the habitat and all of that. Meanwhile, if we truly think that, we should also think, well, breeding a fish that could ruin a local habitat is just as devastating, right? So this is a question that doesn't really have a good answer. We don't need this fish to live. We don't eat it, anything like that. It has, and other animals, by the way, it has a lot of potential to cause harm. But what are the ways in which we could manage this as a community, working with government, to make sure that this doesn't become an illegal hobby, where that is the fear, but how can we work together to avoid that of, oh, look, we can be sensible. The other thing I'll point out here is, even if all of us as hobbyists feel one way, we are the minority. The majority is the weekend warrior that rolls into a big box store, buys some fish, goes home, never's on a live stream, never's on a forum, anything like that. And so those are going to be the people that really are the numbers. So we're already a minority. And if we all speak out without coming up with some good solutions, we're just, just noise. And so I encourage people to look into things. Read it yourself, not articles, not videos. Don't listen to me. Whatever I'm saying here is purely opinion. Instead, go read the language, notice peculiar things like I did, like, oh, this bill affects wild birds, wild mammals, reptiles, and fish. Notice I did not say wild reptiles and wild fish. That's very peculiar there. Is that going to be ratified and changed in the final logic? Is that going to be that way? Like, very interesting, right? So there's these things that this bill is kind of rushed together. It's not fully baked, I would say, but we need to give some of these answers of, when you call that senator to go, hey, does it make sense to you that we would be doing only wild birds and not captive birds, but we do wild fish and captive fish? Does that make sense? Maybe we could, make them both wild or both non-wild, right? So if they were all fish that were bred here in the United States, maybe that changes, right? So when you get them thinking and you have logic that like, yeah, that doesn't make sense to me either, that triggers their, I should look into this, instead of like, I'm sure in a position like that, because I'm in a very small position of like, people from the internet talk to me and I could say anything, right? I could say anything and there'll be pros and cons to it. They're going to be in that same situation. And so it's our job to provide a good argument of why. What would be a better solution? Here's how to make you yourself look better. Propose this as the answer, right? We need conservation programs and updated lists, not mass exodus. Yeah, maybe. We also need people to oversee that. We also need people to become invested in that. We also need people to become invested in the planet and their own local communities and their own forests and streams and things like that. We need lots of things. And so do I think though, and back to the original thing, do I think that sensationalizing, getting everybody to stand up and fight against a law that hasn't even really been fully fleshed out is the answer? I think we could use our influence for something better if we were going to try and do that. And so you guys can watch my video on it. I go into more detail. But I encourage you guys to think about it critically. Don't read articles. I mean, not that you can't read articles, but realize that those articles are also a reflection of someone's opinions, right? And the video is a reflection of someone's opinions. The only things that really matter is, what does the current bill look like? And how will it actually be enacted and followed through, right? Just because there are lots of laws per state that are on the books that aren't actually enforced, right? Is this one of those? What is their actual intention here, right? One of the ones that would be, I can pull off the top of my head is, wood is illegal to import into the United States, essentially, with live plants on it. It keeps coming through California because it's a huge facility and they can't catch it all and they don't really stop it. So that's how it still comes in. I literally can order Java fern on logs if I route it through California. If I route it through Washington, they won't let it through because it's illegal, right? So that's one way to get around it. Now, we can all say, but we should have wood on, Java moss on wood or Java fern on wood, either one. Yes, it's a good thing to have. But why wouldn't you? Well, there's some specific beetles and things that can get in there and increases risk. Perhaps we should have to put our own plant onto a piece of wood because then that piece of wood was properly treated to prevent that beetle from coming in, right? So all I want people to do is do your own critical thinking, do your own critical reading, and then when you do decide to take action, try and take action with something meaningful and leave the person you're talking to with something to think about and potentially keep them going in the direction you want. I find that it's very easy in the current climate to get upset about something and assume the worst, and that helps feed a never-ending cycle of things are only going to get worse. And in that cycle, there's also very few chances for things to get better. And so, being that I have traveled around the world a decent amount, I have brought fish in, I do know how that process works, I do know different limitations, I do know how it affects my business. I've got tons to lose, right? Most of you, if this thing went horribly wrong and you couldn't keep and import new fish, that's a bummer. That being said, a lot of my employees lose their job. I lose my job. A lot of these things happen. And here, I'm not so worried about it because I believe from watching that these things get played out on a very long timeline. If you watch the video, you'll hear me talk about PJAC and how they've been fighting against this for many, many years and how it gets convoluted and how it gets all balled up into one, right? All of those things are true. We could pass this law tomorrow and then we just have a new set of things to deal with. Okay, well, what are we doing now? Okay, we're working on this. We can all get all fired up. We could stop this bill today, and in a year, we'll have the next one, right? That's how the cycle goes. And so I like to focus on, okay, well, yeah, let's work on this. Let's genuinely put our best foot forward. How can we stop invasive species getting out? How can we import things that maybe aren't so invasive? How do we make sure that things aren't being skirted around? We personally don't sell stuff on wood anymore. We made that personal choice. We can route it through California. We can skirt that law. And there's a lot of online vendors doing it. We make that choice not to, right? And it's not that no one should, but everyone's got to navigate that for themselves. And once we were educated on why, right? Well, why don't you sell African Fern bulbitis? Oh, well, we can't find any sustainable sources that aren't hurting the environment to collect it. Same for a lot of the Bucephalandras. And so therefore, we don't sell them, right? And if we have laws and things that continually improve things, that's only good for the hobby. Like in Germany, if you are a store that is killing fish left and right and you don't care about them, you get shut down. I think we can all agree that if we've all heard about it, maybe we haven't all seen it, but stores that habitually kill fish, don't care if they're sick, tanks are disgusting, the general animal welfare is not good, I think we can all agree that if you're not going to try to take care of animals, you shouldn't be allowed to sell them for profit. And that's kind of, I think, logical. And so we might fight against, well, we don't want regulations. That hurts business. That makes my job harder. The reality is, someone who's doing a good job, it shouldn't make their job any harder. Someone who's playing by the rules, it's not going to get that much harder. So we shouldn't be that fearful of it. Now, if you're doing something very illegal and you know you're not caring for the animals, you're really going to fight against that because you know it's very detrimental. And that doesn't mean that there couldn't be a rule that comes out that really is like, wow, this is really a pain in my butt. But you get through it and you go, okay, well, let's work on making this better. What's the workaround that makes sense? Yeah. And we could fight about it all we want, and someone says, this bill also affects birds and reptiles and mammals, right? And so being that it's so widespread, it might get worked out really quick, right? All of a sudden it'd be like, wait a second, we can't move cows? Because in the logic also it says you can't move something from state to state. And all of a sudden you'd watch that get turned real quick, like, wait a second, I can't get the cow to the slaughterhouse so we can feed people? Hold on. Yep, we can move them interstate again. Didn't realize that was going to affect it that way. So until we start seeing some of these things play out, I think it's, I think it's a good idea to educate yourself. I think it's a good idea to stay up on it if you're interested in it and help brainstorm what the perfect solution does look like so we can herd the cattle towards that. Yeah, I think that's the best solution I have. I don't have the answer, by the way. I would probably put it forth if I did. The only thing I'm about sure of is that whipping everybody into a frenzy for views is not actually helping. Yeah, I see a lot of people that will take something at face value, spit out a video or an article or whatever they can as fast as they can, so they hit the news cycle first, so they might get picked up by mainstream media. They might get picked up by YouTube algorithms, stuff like that. And that's actually the motivation. The motivation is to get that notoriety and not actually solve the problem. Now, they probably want to solve the problem too, but that wasn't the original intent. Because the original intent would be, I'm going to sit outside my senator's house and have a talk with him, meet him for lunch, do this, do that. I'm going to do it with everybody. That might have a chance. Seek bigger organizations. Donate money. I donated money to PJAC, by the way. I don't do it every year. I actually, since I've donated, I've found that they don't always think like I would think. I actually have a different whole presentation, and this one happened to be on like yellow tangs, and the legislation was trying to stop the export of yellow tangs to America, and that was going to be very detrimental to the industry and things like that. And what I'm against kind of is, if we're really thinking about the world here and the environment and things like that, it shouldn't be cheaper and easier to fly an animal around the world than it is to breed one locally. And what I mean by that is, maybe a neon tetra shouldn't be $1 at a box store because it was bred in Russia or wild caught, and instead that animal should be $4, but it was raised 2 states away. So it had to travel a little bit, better for the environment. You could make a corner case on, you had to heat that warehouse where in the wild you wouldn't have to heat it. You could make a case that those people lost jobs. It's a very complex problem. But I don't inherently just agree to they're trying to regulate something and therefore regulation is bad. I do believe that, like, well, honestly, if this thing was more expensive, they wouldn't have to use, you know, the detrimental ways. And there are, so like in that particular presentation, there were the people who are collecting sustainably and doing the right job. And then there were the people using cyanide and dynamite and things like that that were also, right? And the law was basically caught that attention, let's stifle that out. But if people are willing to pay more for a yellow tang, and that money actually makes it to a collector and actually makes it to self-enforcement where they're ensuring that that doesn't happen, and it ensures that the wholesaler wants to make sure they work with reputable companies that aren't doing that, you can build a chain that will more or less improve. So that's what I'm for, and not so much let's only fight against legislation, because I don't think all legislation is bad when it comes to the fish keeping industry. I think some of it is good. I think some of it is needed. I think there's probably stuff we should have that we don't even know about yet, and threats that we don't foresee coming. But I think education is where it's at. Educating yourself, reading about yourself, not following YouTube headlines, Facebook headlines, and things like that. And it's not fun. Like it took me 20 minutes, you know, to kind of get to it in that 3,000 page thing, and then read through it, digest it, and be like, what are they even trying to say right here? Because it's legalese. But as you do it, you start making, okay, I think they're saying this. Okay, I think I agree with that. Oh, they're saying that. That could be dangerous, right? So, yeah, I'll leave it at that. If you're a member or you want to see this become a member, you can watch the 30-minute extended version of this. I totally get it if you don't want to watch it at all, because that's fine too, right? Because you've kind of got the synopsis right here. What is an AALSO certification? I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know if that's like the new name for the way they're going to certify if a fish is legal to get on the whitelist. Like, that hasn't been fully fleshed out from what I've seen. Now, I don't think I'm the best well-read on this subject either. So don't think that like Corey came in claiming to be an expert. No, no, no. I claim to be a hobbyist that read through it myself and made my own interpretations. And I've yet to see other documentation that was easy to digest that wasn't someone else's opinion, because it doesn't do any good to watch, well, I watched 35 other people's opinions. The opinions don't matter to me. It's like, well, what's the evidence? Where does it say that it's going to do that? Well, I think they're going to do a thing because they do things. Okay, that's fine, but that doesn't mean they will. So I've got very limited info, as much as you guys do, and but, you know, I'm not convinced it's a bad thing. Are we doing fish questions as well? You bet, Ted Rock. You bet. You hit me with the fish question, and I will be trying to answer it. I am for what you can do to help your fellow nerds. We can blame everyone else, but only we can change ourselves. Yeah, and you can also be on the wrong side, right? 60% of America could go, yeah, we don't want invasive fish. That's ruining my farm. And the 40% of us fish keepers go, but no, we're reliable. You don't always get to be on the right side of things, too. Sometimes you go, well, I was outvoted, so all right, we'll see what I can do next time. All right. This is why I'm a member. Corey presented a clearly thought out response. I think the video does it a little bit better. The problem is I get influenced by watching other people. And so I've watched some other creators and it influences me since I've made that video. So it's like, but I think my logic is sound in that I don't think it's all doom and gloom. I don't think it's healthy to assume that. And instead, I kind of still subscribe. If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And so if we can't help, if we don't have a suggestion, let's keep quiet so that we're not, imagine the senator, right? Let's say you're a senator and your phone's ringing off the hook because everyone's just like, hey, don't ban fish, 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 don't ban fish. And maybe he goes, but my local salmon run has been destroyed by XYZ fish, right? But if it was, oh, phone's not ringing, someone calls up, hey, I'd like to talk about this thing. I realize there's invasive species we need to take care of. Here's the ways I think we could improve the way the bill is currently worded. Maybe you could make some changes, or maybe this will sway your vote, knowing that you vote no now, but these are the changes you'd like to see, so you can tell them. That would do way more on a one-on-one conversation than 500 people just, ranting, because people are getting real ranty in emails and on Facebook, and there's a lot of swearing going on, a lot of political stuff going on, and that usually isn't a good way to communicate with people. It doesn't make them want to change their opinion anyway. All right. I'm gonna change topic and let some fish questions pile in. And that way lighten my mood and lighten all your guys' mood. Do plants pearl when you add CO2 to a tank? My crypts don't seem to. So pearling, so little bubbles coming off plant leaves, that happens when there's maximum levels of oxygen in your aquarium, and plants they produce oxygen. And so if there's already maximum amounts, you'll see the bubble come off of it. If there's not a maximum amount, the bubble they make goes into the water. So an example would be that I could probably give real world, the 800 gallon. If I have one crypt in there and it is as happy as it can be, it's just gobbling food, going, Cookie Monster mode, loving life, it probably would never pearl because it's making oxygen like a madman. It's like, yeah, so happy. But it would take so much to oversaturate that water that we will never visually see it. Now, you take that same plant, same conditions, you put it in a 2-gallon tank, probably pearling, dang near, hot tub going on in there because it, is eating so fast, making so much oxygen, but very little water, and so it saturates really quick. So there is a balance between how happy is the plant, how fast is it growing, how much light do you have, versus how much water and how much oxygen, right? So that's one of the reasons I kind of like putting oxygen into my aquarium. Keeps it very high saturation. Then the plants add to that. You see a lot of pearling very easy. But also know that if you don't inject CO2, it doesn't mean your plants aren't getting CO2. You also could still get pearling going on. And just know that pearling doesn't mean your plant isn't happy. It also doesn't mean that there isn't nothing wrong with it, though, too. You could have a deficiency going and like, oh man, there is actually a problem. However, most likely your plant is probably pretty happy. If it looks happy, it is happy, and you might just be seeing that that difference. Are any co-op peeps going to be at the Keystone Clash in PA the last week of September? I know you guys sponsored it pretty heavily. We sponsored it last year. We haven't sponsored it this year yet. I don't know. My wife had talked about going to visit some family that are kind of getting up there in years and health is declining. And I said, well, that might be something we can do. I don't necessarily want to commit to doing a show or a meetup. Like, I'm uneasy about that of like, yeah, let's go visit this person because they're not doing so well. Well, gotta go be the guy at the event. I don't want to seem like, I'm not there to actually support the family and things like that. And so I want to make sure that if we do it in a right way. I want to know that we got our dogs taken care of while we're out of town. I want to know how long the trip takes. I want to know, can we do it in a meaningful way? What does it all look like? And so I don't know that answer yet. So take that for what it's worth. Don't buy tickets or not buy tickets based if I'm going or not going. Don't know yet. What do I think about a small amount of salt constantly in the water as a preventative? I think long term, well, let me back that up. If you're getting fish often, I think that's probably actually a decent move. Like, oh yeah, because you're getting new fish to you, they haven't been in salt all the time like that, probably is therapeutic and helpful. However, if you're the type of person that goes, well, I bought 6 platies, and 12 years later, I still have my 1 aquarium with a bunch of platies. They've all bred there, they've all lived in that salt. If they're, 6 years in the same salinity level, any disease they would contract or would express probably is decently salt resistant. Now that being said, there are some diseases that will just never kind of get a foothold because there is some salt in there. Now, what level is that threshold to what disease? That's still kind of a quagmire for a lot of us. So I don't have a good dosage to be like, this is the magic number. Speaking of sweatpants, I'm actually wearing a pair of sweatpants. Shocker, I know. But if you're a member, which everyone currently chatting is, so if you want to chat, become a member. You get a discount on the website. You get access to extra videos. You've got the Chris Lukup talk coming. You've got the great talks we've had in the past. You get access to all of that. And if you're showing up to Aquashella, which this one's in Orlando, but there's other events we're going to. We just haven't marked them on the calendar yet. If you show up and say, hey, I'm a member, and show us that you're a member, you could get the Aquarium Co-op Club member sweatpants. And I'll tell you what, these sweatpants aren't your normal like $7.99 kind of crappy sweatpants that you get because they're ultra cheap. Oh, no, no, no. I bought expensive sweatpants. That's what these are. These are expensive, and I went for quality because I want to wear these on like the daily, right? And I want my employees to be able to wear them. I want them to be good quality so that you guys will actually cherish them and be like, these are rad. And not, my goal is not to be like, ooh, give me your $5, give me your $5, give me your $5, and then go, oh, but here's something super cheap. That will leave a bad taste in your mouth. Instead, my goal is, you give us $5, give us $5, give us $5, get these and go, oh my gosh, these are amazing. How could I get more of these? These are my favorite pair of sweatpants. Because I believe that everything Aquarium Co-op does is an extension of us as a brand. So if I'm mean to you in person, that makes us look bad. If I give you a really crappy pair of sweatpants, that makes us look bad. If this peels off in 10 seconds, that makes us look bad, right? So there's a lot of things that arguably our job is to ship you stuff, plants, dry goods, all of that. That's our job. But I could say stuff while I'm live. I could give you a bad user experience. Any of those things will be negative on the brand as a whole. So even the things that we give away, I only give away things that I would sell. And I would sell these. So, yeah, they're sweet. I had different, I wanted to make sure I loved to have cuffs on the bottom. So I had to have cuffs. Wanted nice pockets. I wanted it so that, I would wear it. Zenzo would wear it. I don't think anyone will walk away and go, man, they sure cheaped out on those sweatpants. You might go, oh, these aren't for me. They're a little too warm. They're a lot of blah, 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 whatever, right? Hopefully you'll really enjoy these. I'm enjoying them so far. That being said, they have not stood the test of time to me yet. I haven't washed a pair yet. I literally just got them like a few hours ago, but I wanted to put, butt in sweatpants time ASAP so that I could, give feedback because they've already been printed. So, and here's a feel-good story for you guys. These are printed by a member. We're using literally a member owns a company and we're buying them all from them. So not only do your guys' money help us, but your money goes back into another member's business. So I don't know, I think that's kind of an extra cool thing. But Corey, I'm not a member. I don't want to be a member. I think, what's a really bad? Mars candy bars are the best, and I'm just going to be at Aquashella to torment you. Well, don't worry. You can still torment me and get yourself a free Aquarium Co-op shirt. These are free to the first 3,000 people that come to our booth and grab one. I really like, and again, Shirts were not cheap. This is Gildan. If you produce shirts, you're going, okay, that's pretty good. These are the same exact quality as the shirts we sell. So we're basically giving you, what, $20, $25 shirts for free. So again, hopefully you'll show up to that event and get your free swag. But Corey, I don't live in America. But Corey, I won't be at Orlando. I know. We're going to figure out what we're going to do. I'm thinking maybe we can get those sweats up on the website at some point. You guys could buy some. But Corey, those aren't free. Yeah, I know. One step at a time. Corey, I live outside the United States. I know. We're trying. We'll see what we can do. And when it comes to the shirt, I'll probably print it in a different color because I like it. So you get the exclusive, like, well, I got the natural color. Have to get that one in person. So maybe that one will be in a blue, or I think blue is our second choice color. So maybe we'll do blue on the website. Who knows? But it will be a member only shirt at best. So you'll have to be a member. You have to sync up your account. Then you'd be able to purchase it. Anyone can get one at the show. So we're just giving back that way. Yeah. And the goal will be to try and keep these cheap, by the way. So by being a member, we're going to go, okay, well, what's our cost to ship these and all of that? Can we get this down to like, oh, sweet, they're $12. Whatever that's going to look like. So Aubrey still wants the coveted red shirt. I don't know if they're ever making a comeback. We have one employee that has one, and he is the envy of the rest of the warehouse crew. So I feel a giveaway coming up. You could not be more wrong, Mad Medic. Ever since we had to deal with the Attorney General for doing a giveaway, I will basically never do a giveaway again. It's unfortunate when other creators turn you in for doing good things and then you have to fight about it, and yeah. Where's some fish questions? I gave you guys plenty of time for hit me with fish questions. You guys are talking about non-fish stuff. So don't blame me when you're like, you didn't talk about fish. You guys aren't talking about fish. You're talking about $400 sweatpants. Talking about 30 minutes away, I'll be right there. Yep. Can I please tell us the dimensions of square footage of the room I'm in now? Let's see. So this is 16, 20. This room is 30 feet long this way. And if I remember right, it's 30 this way. This one room might be 30 by 30. It's a decently big room for sure. Yeah. Do you have sweatpants for my shrimp? Yes. They're real expensive though. Microsewn. When will the shop expansion be done? I don't know. Today I got an update with the big shop tank. It's they're welding the legs together and hopefully bring it to the powder coater on Friday. However long that's going to take them. We definitely got more stuff to build out. The acrylic aquariums I ordered from a different manufacturer in July. Still not here. I mean, I got one set of them. I emailed them, 3 days ago, and they're like, oh, don't worry, buddy. Put them into production. Like, that's code for like, oh yeah, let me do those. So that's basically what that is. Like, ugh. All right, come on, guy. I really need them. So, is there East Coast Aquarium Co-op coming? Like a physical store? No. Nope. I can barely stay on top of all the irons in the fire I got now. I got to make my chat bigger. Let's do that. By the way, I want to say thank you to all the new members before the show. That was kind of fun. New people would join, get some one-on-one time. Yeah, so we had like 3 or 4. It's good. 39 months of the member, I should give away something. I am working on a lot more swag, by the way. I'm really working on it, and I'm hopeful that this company right here, AKT, will work out with lots of different things. I did 3 or 4 emails today just to get the ball rolling. There's going to be some samples that I can look at Aquashella, and we're working on the scratch and dent thing for the members, so that's cool. Do I think the new 60 breeder will replace the 75 in the hobby? It depends, Paul. If they're dramatically cheaper, yes. If they're not, I think most people are just going to be like, meh, I'll take a 75. I think availability and things like that do matter. Can I double dose Maricin to get rid of big algae? I don't know that answer. I can't recommend it. I feel like I've tried that at some point, but you could definitely murder fish and things like that if it went wrong. And I don't want to be like, Corey said I could do it. Oh my gosh, what's gone wrong? But I've always been able to cure blue-green algae with just the normal, like, standard dose. So I don't think I've ever had to go like double. Let's see, what else? My little scrolly wheel's acting up. How do I get in touch with you about fish from Dean? The answer is you can't really. I mean, you can. You can get in touch with Candy, and you're going to be like, how do I get Dean fish? And then she's going to be like, oh yeah, you have to go to the retail store. And then you're going to be like, when are they going to be there? And then she's going to say, no idea. Dean brings them in at random. That's basically how it kind of goes down. And yeah, people are never happy with that, but Dean's got a life. Other people got lives. And sometimes things sell out super fast. Some things you can be like, well, I'm bringing them in on Thursday. Oh, these weren't ready. They didn't look quite right. They weren't quite big enough. Whatever. Like, there's a million little factors. And so it's easier for us to go, sorry, not really any way to get them. And then people are pleasantly surprised when they do show up. Any news on when we might get more linear air piston pumps? When they are freed up at the California port. We buy those from another company, straight from the manufacturer. And as with everybody, if we don't control the supply chain, they kind of let it lapse. And so here we are sitting out. You know, you kind of got to, for the past 18 months, if you're just doing business as usual, you're way behind the 8 ball. You know, like right now, like with these air pumps, right? Which are finally for sale, by the way. So if you remember, you already knew this. If you're watching this live stream now, you'll know. But the USB new air pump that can also run for hours on battery, has a battery saver mode, so it'll be on for a bit, off for a bit to get double the, double. Let me turn that off. But these guys are available now and awesome. But we already know that even though we bought 5,000 of them, they're selling fairly fast. We already have to get more into production. Like, we're already behind the 8 ball because we don't have the next one on the water yet. And that's kind of what's happening with a lot of businesses. They're not in a place to go, oh, well, let's get multiple containers of the same product on the water to factor in the delays at the port. And so with us, we wanted to get these and get feedback and make sure they're good before getting the next one on the water, so to speak. So we're working on packaging. We might be switching manufacturers because there were some things we wanted to fix, like the foam placement to keep them quiet. Some of them were off, so we had to fix them. I know that sounds weird. Watch the other video from the member thing. It explains it better. But yeah, these things going fast, awesome, and yeah. Water Life Pets, a new member, welcome. 1 Dark Night Ram for a community 40 breeder with platies, neons, cherry shrimp, and panda cats. Sure. Running like 82 degrees. If you run middle of the road kind of pH and hardness, you'd probably be all right. I have a pink flamingo I bought from Aquarium Co-op. You fool. It's doing amazing. I dose with Easy Green, but haven't started the tabs. Do you think it will spread without tabs? It can. I mean, it depends on like how much fish poop or what type of substrate that you're running. But yes, at worst, it'll limp along. At best, it'll start sending out runners for you. Usually, if you give them all the foods, they do it faster. But I've also had situations where I gave them all the foods and it still takes a while. So, Susan SLC Aquatics, thanks for re-upping your membership. And yeah, thanks for the kind words. Have a good night. Large companies are outbidding smaller companies for raw materials, factory time, and space on shipping vessels. I think that's all happening, but I also think that's a lot of lip service too. The reality is, if you have money and you're strategic about what you're doing, you can compete on some level. Like, I'm not Amazon, I'm not buying my own ships that are smaller and using smaller ports. However, I mean, and maybe I've lost touch with reality. So let's be the first to go, Corey's lost touch with reality. Look at this guy. Because I watch that happen with lots of, people all the time. So maybe I've crossed that threshold and I don't know it yet. So if I am, let me start by apologizing. But I think I'm kind of the definition of a small business. Now, I might be on the bigger end of a small business because there's definitely a difference between like mom and pop, 2-person owner business and us with like 35 employees. However, the definition of a small business is like anyone under 500 employees. And we're definitely nowhere near like a company with 450 employees. So I still think we're a small company in the scale of companies. We've been able to do pretty good by working really hard, trying to be smart, bobbing and weaving where we can, very little outages. I think most small retailers can also pull that off, but they have to be planning on this and working on it before it's too late. Like, I know to stay competitive with someone who's got more money and more resources than I gotta study a little bit harder. I've got to catch up. And so I've been watching the economy. I've been watching port delays. I'm watching all these things, trying to put the pieces together, right? And that leads to minimal delays, but still delays. Now, if you're just like, well, we ran out of the thing, let me order some more. If you're that far removed from all of this in business right now, you're going to pay the price for it. And there are people that have businesses where it's like, oh, I'm building a house. I don't have time to watch the like supply chain of nails and screws and stuff like that. And that is difficult. However, at a certain point you go, hey, that was hard to buy. Ooh, they're back in stock. Let me buy 8 months worth of screws or nails. And then you can go, well, I don't have that money. Okay, well, just know that everything is opportunity cost, and that if you don't have screws and nails to build a house, you don't get to build a house, you don't earn money, which means you don't get to buy the next set of screws and nails and things like that. And so by watching this happen, I'm trying to scrimp and save and do these moves and not launch a light last year, even though we may have been able to, and put ourselves into trying to not be in that situation. We've done okay. And I think most people, if they dedicate some attention to that, they can fare better than not dedicating attention, basically. Doesn't mean it's foolproof. Let's see here. Where was that comment? There we go. Domestic manufacturing, more cost to consumer, but I pay for made in America? I'll be the first to say, I love the idea of things being made in America. However, the person that sells it, Mad Medic, you're 1 in 100. For every one person that goes, I would pay 3 times as much for the thing made in America, there are 99 other people that won't. 50 of them would say, I'll pay more for stuff made in America. However, they also order the cheapest thing on Amazon, right? So they say one thing, they do another thing. Then there's, another set of people that are like, nah, I don't care. I'm just ordering the cheapest thing, right? And there's a variety of reasons. There's maybe you don't have the money to do it. Maybe it's built into your culture. Maybe you just don't care. Like, there's a million reasons. I would love for it to circle back around, and I don't even care about manufactured in America. That is a great byproduct. What I really care about is I don't want to make crap in America. I would love to see an economy come back where you buy a dishwasher, it's supposed to... No, let me just rewind even further. How many of us grew up in a house where your microwave and your refrigerator and your washer and dryer ran for like ever? You're like, oh yeah. Like, I remember at my grandma's house, literally she had a microwave in the year 2000 right before I graduated that was from early 80s or late 70s. She replaced it not because it broke, because she wanted some more features. Next to that was a refrigerator that had been there my entire life till I was like 18. Now, most things don't last more than 5-10 years, maybe. So I don't care where it's being made. I would love it if it was made. I would love it if my neighbor made my microwave. But the thing I want even more than that, I want it to last a long time. I want it so that when your refrigerator breaks, you call and they repair it. And it's not cheaper to buy a new one than it is to get it repaired. Or, well, that part's 9 months out. Especially in an economy we have right now. I've got the perfect example. My heat pump is broken for like the 4th time. It's been a horrible experience. I'm like the poster child for don't buy whatever brand heat pump I have. It's 3 months to even get a guy to work on it. And then they're waiting on the backlog. Like half the reason it's 3 months is like we're hoping if I order the part today, within 3 months it'll be here. One of the boards needs to be replaced. And so luckily it still runs off of just heat or just electricity, bypasses using any of the efficient part that we put in for the whole reason. But you don't get that luxury with something like a refrigerator. Like you can't be like, well, I'll just go without a refrigerator for 3 months. And so if we're focusing on that aspect, I would love to see more closer to home manufacturing, but I really want an attention to detail of let's fix this thing forever and keep it going, and not so much, it's cheaper and easier to buy a new one. How do you get the fancy green text highlight? How long do you have to be a member? You just have to be a member for a month, I believe, and then each month you get a special super chat, or not a member chat, sorry. There's a member chat where you can have your comment highlighted like once a month. Washer and dryer, 19 years old, big fan of repairs? Yeah. Now, I'm a very non-handy guy, so I got to rely on like a Corbis Oskin or a Dean or someone to be like, hey, help me install the new thing to this. And I've gotten scrappy and I've done some of my own repairs, but there's a lot of stuff I can't do, and so it literally is cheaper for me to buy new. I would love it though if there was a vehicle where, oh yeah, I called the appliance repair person, they came in, they fixed it, and that made sense instead of my current experiences are appliance stops working, calling the repair guy. Oh yeah, well, with my call here, and I got to order this part, and I'm too lazy to fix it, and you should just buy a new one. You get a new warranty. You get, and that's not me doing any other accent than just one different from my own. And so you kind of get the runaround of like, but isn't your whole job to have the part kind of on the truck so that I call you, you install it, and for $500 we're done? It's kind of my thing of why I don't think wholesalers need to exist anymore. Isn't your job to stock products so when I order from you it's in stock? And then they don't have it in stock like ever? Turns out I don't need you. Kind of the same thing. I think America's kind of learning that with a lot of repair. We've all had the experience, you have a good repair person, they're worth $1 billion, save you a ton of money, they're a wizard. And then you've got people that like are the opposite of that. We're like, did we just spend $400 and we knew more than this person? How is that possible? They're trained in this. Like I've owned a microwave for 6 years, but this guy didn't even know how to turn it on. All right. We now live in a disposable society. Products have gotten so cheap to manufacture that it's more expensive to repair than replace many things. Yeah, and so that's the conversation shift, I would say. Let's get more sustainable products. Great if they're, if my neighbor makes them, that's even better. However, I think the first thing, let's make it so we don't throw everything away all the time. Second thing, let's make them closer to home. I think inherently, both those things are good, executed correctly. There's some finalities there that I'm sure don't make sense, but top level view. We have awesome well water for cichlids. What are your thoughts about having constant water trickle going through it? I've done that. I've had it done on like a 300-gallon aquarium, And yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. What I would say is know that it doesn't take that fast of a drip to keep your water sitting at like 0 nitrates. So a lot of times you might go from, oh, I changed water manually, and you might have the thing changing pretty quick. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it's spraying in there. And then keep testing like week after week after week for like 6 or 8 months, and you'll probably go, whoa, we could dial that back by 90% and still be sitting at 0. So you can save a lot of water and have fresh water that way, I suppose. Activates carbon or charcoal beneficial to a tank, tan removal, and smell removal. I heard carbon removes fertilizers for plants. Yeah, the problem with carbon is it doesn't really pick a favorite. It just absorbs things. And so it can absorb bad things. It can absorb good things. It just absorbs. So, yeah, it can absorb fertilizer. So that's where something like a Purigen, it's made so it won't absorb fertilizer but still absorbs some of the other things, but it's way more expensive. Yeah. How do you propagate Cryptocoryne calamastrata? Mine is getting large and really want more. So what happens is it kind of keeps getting bigger and bigger, more leaves, and then eventually it'll just grow like a new pod, like a tuber. And from that point, it'll grow some roots and a couple of leaves, and you just kind of go, and you've got another plant. So there's no, I mean, not that I know of anyway. Maybe there's someone else that knows, but there's no like, oh, I just cut it down the center and made 2. It's a wait till it gets happy and makes babies, and they don't make a lot, by the way. It's more like, more like a big one would make 2 or 3 little babies a year for me. How's the Aquarium Co-op regulator coming along? I'm waiting to start CO2 for your product. We're probably 6 or 8 months out. I polled the community asking how many CO2 tanks they were running, because we had the option of, well, how many CO2 outlets do we want on this thing? And every outlet we included, the price went up. And so I think our best method will be releasing a 1 outlet CO2 system with manifolds to expand up to 5. We were thinking about, do we start with 2? Do we start with 3? Because usually if you like CO2, you want more, but also keeping it cheap, or if you only own 1 tank, it's like, oh, how do we slice and dice this to make sense for everybody? It's really hard to do. I got a new LG stuff for my wife last Christmas, and 3 have had problems and nobody will work on them. Oof. Luckily, I think we got some LG appliances and they seem to be working great. So, I'm definitely not like, everyone should buy LG. Just thankful mine aren't broken. And that's, I think, the big difference, between now and like 20 years ago, 30 years ago. We're just happy if our things work and don't break all the time, instead of like, you're thankful you didn't get the one that broke 8 months in. That shouldn't even be a thing. We should only be getting better. Can it go away on its own without treatment? It's kind of a loaded question. In that anything is possible, in reality, no. Like, replace ick with a human disease. Can cancer go away on its own? I mean, I'm sure someone's had that happen, but nope. That's kind of how diseases work. They don't usually just go away on their own. Sorry, I got a little phlegm going on today. My fancy goldfish losing a little color. Should I be worried? Depends. There is kind of, if it's already big and robust and it's 20 years old, maybe. However, if it's young, they change color a lot while growing up. And so you could be like, I started with an all black one and now he's white or yellow or gold or patchy or both. So not necessarily, but if there's like, oh, it never changed before and all the colors is duller, it might be more stressed. Welcome to WizKid, by the way. Will the Aquarium Co-op light have the ability to dim the brightness and turn off and on the blue lights? It has the ability to dim. and there are no blue lights. I removed them. So some people will hate me for that, but I made the executive decision. I would rather have more useful, what I consider useful, lights for the plants and the color spectrum I like, instead of having those blue LEDs. So, yeah, technically it is true. How do you meet girls who are into the fish hobby? Asking for a friend. The best way, in my opinion, is to get involved with a club, whether it's a local like fish club that meets once a month, whether it's the Killifish Association or the Cichlid Association or whatever that looks like. That's where you can at least see, okay, well, there's other people here who are into what I'm into. And then from there, it's normal human stuff of like, that person doesn't seem to be with someone else. I wonder if they're single. What do those blue lights even do? So what blue lights typically do, and I can show you guys this, I think, in person. All right. So right now, I have a color spectrum that is warm to my skin. What does that mean? That means when you see a soft white light bulb where it's kind of an orangey color, that's what this is. And so that's missing a lot of the blue. So if we were to add blue in, I think I can do that with my light here. Let me try. Does this do it? Oh, I'd actually have to, I'm going to have to, let's see. You see how my face is changing here? So I'm real blue right now. Now I'm real, like, normal color. So adding the blue in changes how something looks to our eyes, right? And so this might make a neon tetra look better. It might make your plants look a little bit greener. But in general, I think what our minds think about is more like the beach and sunlight and that kind of stuff. And so in an aquarium, a lot of people do it to remind them of nature. And in nature, our brains think about this color. However, in nature, you're actually going to see all of the colors. So like at noon or something like that, right? At noon, you're going to see much more blue. But earlier in the day and later in the day, you're going to see more of this golden color. And so in the aquarium, blues typically are used as kind of nighttime LEDs to replicate moonlights. And they can make blues look a little better on fish, and there's a lot of blue fish, so we like that. And then, but people, when they leave those blue lights on, they don't realize like leaving lights on grows algae. And so therefore, I chose to just remove them because I think people prefer a little more reds, and I know plants prefer a little more reds than they do oranges, or not oranges, instead of blues. And so, yeah, a lot of lights will make it so you can turn just the blues off. And because so many lights have that feature, to me, it's purely a sign of like, there must be a lot of people like me that don't really like the blue. Now, Purple Cat Audio, he or she is going into it a little deeper. Blue is shorter wavelength. Algae loves this. Yes, there is what spectrums of light do plants prefer, and there's a lot to it. And like in my lighting videos, I go into that. You can nerd down that hole as much as you want and go, oof, that's more than I want to know, right? But for the average person that buys a light and just wants it to look good, I think that definition we've done so far is like, yeah, I saw it go blue to orange. I can see what he's talking about. I think I do like more of a beachish or lake type setting, and that light looks good. And plants seem to think it's okay. All right. So WizKid, you've been timed out for a little bit. Basically, I want to break it down without seeming harsh. It's hard for me to see questions. If you spam too much, it kind of annoys some of the other people, so you got timed out. I do chime in on questions when I can see them, and you might not get a question answered every time. I realize you signed up today, which thank you very much. I actually happen to see your question, so I will be able to answer it, but do know that that's not typically the norm, and it might take a few live streams, or I might answer it in the comments down below after a video, or it might not ever get a chance to answer it. But I feel like that's a better way to let you know, instead of like, I'm so angry, I got timed out, or anything like that. So it says, hi, I have a question. Are pipefish okay for my aquarium? It has peaceful fish, shrimp, and snails. Freshwater pipefish are usually very hard to feed. They typically will only eat live foods. You're hatching out live baby brine and usually keeping a culture of Daphnia going. And while they can cohabitate with other fish, they're usually outcompeted for food. And so you really got to be good at culturing live foods in massive quantities to be able to feed, the guppies or whatever you got living with them, and those pipefish, because you really got to overfeed, because they're really slow feeders. So conventional wisdom from people that have kept and bred them and things like that. I've kept them. I haven't bred them. I helped fuel someone with live foods to help breed them, and we were successful. Is that it's not worth all the effort you got to put in to pull that combo off when you could just keep them in their own aquarium, and now it becomes, like a whole magnitude easier. It's still not an easy fish. It's actually pretty difficult, but it's a whole level easier than keeping them together. That seems like a punishment I don't want. I just got an aquarium co-op air pump. Any tips for running it on 2 tanks? You buy a splitter. You're on a 55 and a 30. What you will see a lot of times is back pressure. So how long are the tubes? If you have them going across the whole room, that's going to create back pressure. Check valves create back pressure. Fine air stones create back pressure. And all of these affect the pressure and will be, how good is this going to be at adding air to your aquarium? So ideally, in a perfect world, you'd use a splitter, and you might have the air pump sitting on top of one of the aquariums with a little short piece that goes to a splitter, and then it goes into this aquarium like a foot, and that one takes a little bit of air. And then you run like 3 or 4 feet over to the next aquarium, and the rest of the air goes there, and they're both working. But if I gotta have the pump sitting here, and I run a 30-foot piece of tubing to the 800-gallon, and then I run a 30-foot piece of tubing to a pond over there, probably this air pump is gonna go, mercy, that's too much back pressure. I can't do both. I can only do one of those. And so set yourself up for a little bit of success and make the runs as short as you can. By putting it on top of the aquarium, you don't have to run check valves, so that's 2 less things are going to add to back pressure. So do all the things you can to make it low PSI. I have your test strips, but I can't understand what this color is telling me. The best thing you could do, Barry, is you could post on the forum, or if I happen to catch the next KH, like the biggest one that we run into, actually, we'll see if Jimmy was able to fix this, is our hardness one, right? No. Yeah, hardness and buffer. But so the hardness and buffer kind of right here, sometimes they can be a color that's not even on the chart. It's a hardness one, I remember. It can be like a pinky purple color that goes past this. That usually means you just have way more than 300. So when you see a color that's not even on there, so he's got lighter purple for GH. Great. Let's see here. Lighter purple. Yeah. So if that if it's none of these and it goes to like I was saying, like that other purple color, that usually means that your hardness is above 300. And so it's a catch-22 of trying to keep this readable for most people without going, well, which one of these 7,000 squares is it? At a certain point, it's like, that's just really, really hard. And anything over 300 will come back as that color. Since your flue wall nano heater is preset, would it be too hot for your resist brine shrimp hatchery? No, it should be set. It's either 76 or 78. It shouldn't get too hot. It should maintain that temperature. So should work out just fine for you. When using Simple Green, I'll assume you mean Easy Green, does it raise nitrates? Mine have jumped up to 160. It does. The main ingredient you're adding is nitrates. The best way to explain this is you're adding food. So it's like, imagine you're feeding the shrimp and you add 2 algae wafers, but they only eat 1. And you do this every week. Well, eventually you're going to be like, but there's 8 rotting algae wafers. Yeah, we need to only be feeding 1. Same thing could be going on in your aquarium of, okay, well, I'm dosing 4 pumps. I don't know what your size of your aquarium is, but dosing 4 pumps, and after a month and a half, we're at 160 parts per million. It might mean you do some water change to get back down to about 40, and now you only dose 1 or 2 pumps a week. And now you're in equilibrium, right? So that's how much it's consuming, but realize that plants grow. So 6 months from now, your plants might be eating 4 pumps worth of Easy Green every week. And so if you trim them back, a lot of factors go in, the amount of fish load or fish poop load, a lot of things go into that magic number. And so it's our job to go, okay, well, how much do I need to supplement into what's already going on? Setting up a large fish room in a building with a mini water heater. I'd like to use an instant hot water heater. Any recommendations? My old fish room ran a tankless natural gas powered water heater. Worked amazing. Never ran out of hot water ever. Given the choice, I would always opt for one of those. I don't have natural gas here or at the store, so I use conventional water heaters and make do. And so that might mean, oh, I can only change a few 100 gallons in the 800 gallon at a time. Works okay for me, but get yourself like a commercial unit. They're probably around $2,000. Get that installed. You'll never be lacking hot water again. On another note, where can I pick up some mangrove killifish? Been watching Aquabid for a few weeks. Can't find any for sale. I don't know what a mangrove killifish is. Let me see if I can. The rivulus. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's considered a species of concern by the National Marine Fisheries Service in the United States. Yeah, I'm not sure about that fish at all. Let's see, it lives in brackish water and marine waters along the coast of Florida. Yeah, I think you're going to be at the mercy of something like Aquabid for now, unfortunately. Welcome, Nanners. We also have Renai. Yeah, that's actually the brand I have, Renai. Renai is the tankless water heater that I have, or had. Don't have it anymore, but I loved it. I also had a Renai heater for the fish room. Love that too. Are electric tankless water heaters a thing now? I think they are. I was looking into it because I really loved having that, but my uncle, a plumber, basically said at the point where you're doing electric, they just start turning into boilers. So you have this like boiling water system, and it's not nearly as convenient. And what I mean by that, it takes a lot of power to pull it off, right? But a lot of times, like in my power panel here, like, oh wait, half the power coming to this building would have to go just to that, and then I'd be short on power for other things I want to do. So it made sense to put a traditional one in. Instead of it being instant water, it's like, okay, well, I have like an 80-gallon tank, and I keep that at 127 degrees. When you mix that with cold water, it ends up being like 200 or 300 gallons of 78-degree water, which is plenty for what I'm doing. And then it's heating, and so, you know, I typically don't change much more than that at a time anyway. So let it recharge, and that's one of the reasons I use auto water change systems. I can go, hey, change for 10 minutes. That might be 50 gallons of water. Let the water heater recoup for an hour. Do the next set of tanks. Makes it real easy. Your Fluwell Nano heater is $7 less on Amazon, but I'm still ordering from the co-op. It is the easiest way to repay you for all the help with the hobby. Loyalty counts. Well, I appreciate that. I'll also take this time to highlight the other benefits. So when you buy that thing on Fluwell or on Amazon, if it was to crap out on day 31, you got to go through Fluval. That's going to be a nightmare. If you buy it from us and it craps out on day 31, you deal with candy. And that's the best experience possible. We make you take a picture, we troubleshoot for, and this might be 2 emails over the course of 4 hours. And then we go, yep, that thing's broken. Send them out a new one. And that's basically, you're going to get all that customer service. Now, $7 is a lot of money. But I promise you'll get the least hassle possible when something goes wrong. And I hope that nothing ever does go wrong. But that's, the other thing we will do for you is if you have questions, you want to optimize, we'll help troubleshoot all that. Amazon doesn't do that. There will be products though, and I realize this, you're like, well, but I needed 180 of them. You should definitely be saving $7 a piece. You probably don't need our warranty. You probably don't need our one-on-one customer service. No harm, no foul. But for a lot of people, the extra attention to detail and the sticker you're going to get for free and, just some of the other things like, oh, it's not so bad. And, again, that's a product that we would love to be able to match the price, but Fluval doesn't allow that to happen apparently. And so we'll end up launching our own heater that will come with a good warranty, and we've tested a bunch and we'd like to use. So for now though, I appreciate your honesty. I still appreciate you ordering from us. And just making sure people know what some of the benefits would be. If the price is fairly close, it's a no-brainer to me of get rad customer service and a better warranty. If it's a big discrepancy, then I would say, well, I can't fault you for that. Good evening, Brandon. Nally. A 10% tank failure might make me stay up at night sometimes. Oof. I'm having trouble with my L066 Plecos. Males are trapping females. It scrolled off the page 1 second. I'm hopeful for eggs soon, but also do you have any tips on breeding Swartricories? They're not easy to breed, but in general, lots of food. When it comes to Corydoras and Plecos, rarely do I meet someone feeding enough. They're like, oh, look at that. I put a lot of food in there. I'm like, that's not even getting started. They want so much. And that's usually what's holding people back is the sheer amount of food and then clean up afterwards. All of that cycle is, it's way more than we think until we see it and they go, oh, that's what it takes. Like when I was breeding Corydoras, I would put a literal ½ pound of blackworms into the tank every 2 weeks so they could eat when I wasn't actively feeding them. I would also actively feed them heavy every day. But most people aren't taking a literal ½ pound of food. They're basically getting a pound of food every 2 weeks going into a 40 breeder. Most people aren't doing that. They're going, oh, well, they're getting 3 algae wafers a day. Like, that's not even close. Or like, I put 2 cubes of bloodworms. Like, yeah, but that's only going to be 14 cubes. There's 24 to a pack, and that's only a 3.5 ounce pack. Like, you're feeding 1/10 of the amount that I would have been feeding at that point, for instance. It's a lot. That's the biggest thing is more food. Now, obviously, decent water, don't have people eating the eggs. There's some other stuff too, but food, 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 food. Do I use CO2 with Monte Carlo? Yes, I highly recommend. It makes it a lot easier. It can be done. It makes it a lot easier with CO2. Not liquid, but pressurized CO2. I've not dealt with candy, but I have dealt with Fluval. I feel pretty confident candy is better. Yeah. I mean, the problem is we get the horror stories, so we don't get the good stories. So like people will reach out to us and are like, hey, Fluval is being bad at the moment. Rarely do people reach out and be like, Fluval is amazing. Because if you get that good customer service, you don't follow up with someone else. So we have a naturally skewed thing of it, but I've seen some pretty crazy stuff of, like they make you cut the cord and they do all this and it's, it's like, my biggest thing is shipping times. Like we realize that if a heater, if a light, if something goes wrong, right, we're going to try to get it replaced to you as fast as possible. Where a manufacturer's like, yeah, we'll get it sent out. It's being shipped ground, 10 to 12 days it'll be there. That's a long time to not have a light or a heater or something like that. So it's, we try to really diagnose, is it bad or is it good? It's bad, let's get that out today. If not today, tomorrow, get that thing on the way to the customer to make it right. Alternative for a hang-on tank Magnum, I don't think there really is a good one that like that modular system. It's kind of unique. They've never really redone it since. I had neon tetras for my community tank and they died super quick. Do you have any ideas? I've been scared to get neon tetras. WizKid, I would say that there are many reasons that could have happened. It could have been you got a bad shipment. It could have been your tank wasn't right for it. It could have been they had a specific illness. My general advice that I can give is that research some of the problems they have. Maybe if yours died really quick, go back to the pet store and see if theirs are still thriving days later. Maybe try a different source. Did you buy them from a big box store? Was it a mom and pop shop? One of the best things you can do when buying from a mom and pop shop is say, hey, these all died. Can you help me figure out what happened? And don't be accusatory, because 50% of the people ever walk through the door, these all died, your fish suck, I want my money back. You instantly put them on the defensive. If you instead start with, yep, I bought 6 neon tetras, they didn't do so well. Can you help me test my water and look at where it went wrong? I really want to own some of these fish and not sure. You kind of kill them with kindness. A lot of times what will happen is if you bring your water in, now it looks amazing and you buy other stuff and then it comes and you're buying some more neon tetras, they go, well, how about you buy 3, I'll give you 3, right? So they're already like trying to work with you and you'll develop a rapport that might save you more money. So you come back in, you're like, yeah, the neon tetras are doing great. I'd like to get 10 more. And now they go, well, you know what? You buy 8, I'll give you 2, right? And so you're getting closer and closer to getting all your money back, building a good relationship with that store, learning with them. Or you come back in, your water parameters are crazy, right? And that's why they died. Now you're getting free education from them to go, okay, well, here's how we're going to fix this part. Let that sit for a week, come back, we'll test your water again, we'll see if you're ready. Oh, still got to do a little bit more. Okay, let's fix that. And then you come back in 2 weeks later. Now you're ready to buy some more neon tetras. They may or may not give you like, oh, buy 5, get 1 free. They may or may not help you, but you did get your education and you got hopefully to keeping your fish. One thing to know about the hobby is it's not purely trade money for success. It's trade money for a chance, right? So think of every time you buy a pet is more like you're signing up for a class to learn. It doesn't mean you're going to be good at learning that class. It just means you've invested the money to see if this is right for you or not. And so a lot of people think, well, I paid my money, I'm supposed to get my A. Like, no, you have to work for it. You gotta make sure that you're learning, you've provided the right environment, and there's an obligation that the teacher does a good job or the store has healthy fish and things like that. But a lot of people can make it one-sided, and I think the more you work with the person on the other side of that counter, the better results you're going to get long-term over lots of different types of fish. The more they'll get to know you. If they already know your water, you might get neon tetras going great. And you know what's going to work out really good for you? Let's get you some corridoras. These are going to go great with those fish. Did I get any closer to getting those cool sounding frogs? I did. I bought them, but now I have to wait for weather. They got a crazy shipping process where they won't ship to your home unless it's above 40 degrees at the lowest temperature. They'll ship to the FedEx warehouse if it's above 30, but the closest FedEx warehouse to us is a colossal disaster. We've had Rapace shipments just fall into the void for months there. We've had lots of problems, and so I'm basically waiting until it warms up a little bit. They want a 4-day span where it's above 40 and they'll ship it to my house, and that's when I'll schedule it. But until then, you just kind of do this waiting game. So I've bought 5 of them. That's all they had left. Now we're hoping. Puppy training classes, some people never really understand how that works. Yeah, this is why I haven't really bought puppy training is I realize you could spend whatever the fee is, let's call it $300. I have no idea how much it costs. It could be $1,000. I don't know. I fully realize that it's on me to spend time and practice the things I learn with the dog. And you could spend a ton of money and the dog could still be stubborn and not learn. It's not 100% on the trainer. You enter into it as a partnership, and hopefully their expertise plus your willingness to learn and spend time with your puppy gets you to a point where you wanted to go, and the money facilitated that. That's the hope. And a lot of times when you invest yourself 110% in anything, the person on the other side of that agreement sees that passion and will usually go above and beyond. They'll go, you know what? Yeah, come in for an extra session. You're so close to getting it. I want to make sure you're a happy customer. Whatever transaction you're doing, when you put in 110% in effort, I'd say 75% of the time, the person on the other side sees that effort and will match it and help you. 25% of the time, they don't care. They're checked out. That's the way the world works, but I still like to go for that 75%. I don't know if I said, but I think I really am settled on, I really kind of want, if I was going to buy / actively drive somewhere to adopt or something like that, I'm really looking for a long hair teacup Chihuahua that would be black, just like Sassy. That would be, if I was like, oh, rescue it from another country or whatever, it's $700. That's what I'm looking for. That being said, if that doesn't happen, it's going to be like, look at this crusty old puppy that wandered into our backyard and is homeless and has no microchip and no one's looking for it. That will become our new dog. I think that's how this transaction is going to work out between my wife and I. So the perfect thing that shows up and we can adopt, or the thing that adopts us, whichever one happens first. Breeding trio of guppies in my daughter's 20-gallon. How many fry or young would you keep in there before moving some to grow out? I have 40 tiny guys. I'd probably raise those tiny guys up to mid-juvenile. Then I'd start moving them probably. Because you can probably get 2 or 3 generations before you really got to start moving. It all depends on water changes and feeding. The guy that built my store, he could keep 300 guppies of adult size in a 20-gallon, and everyone will call BS on that, and they'll think like, that guy said he saw a 7-foot Molly. I realize you're going to say that's impossible. I get that. I don't even care. I've seen it done. This guy is in touch with nature. He's used to dealing with lots of nature in confined spaces. He used to own nurseries, did lots of bonsai. He also does honeybees, and the dude has got a nature thumb, and he could pull off way more than I've ever been able to pull off. So that's the high-end spectrum of what you can pull off. Now you, Dustin, you might be going, I am not that guy. I should probably top out at like 60 adults and, move them out from there. What time? 6:34. Getting ready to set up a dirted 75-gallon tank. How much dirt do the plants need? I want to do a carpeting plants and a few other root feeders. My strong advice to you, Jason, is a 1/4 inch layer of dirt and then whatever substrate you want to run over that. I like gravel. The more dirt you put in, the more headache you're adding. You can always add more dirt later. If you really go, I didn't do enough dirt. You can make mud, so mix dirt and water, freeze it in an ice cube tray, and then go and put that where you want it and let it defrost. You added more dirt. Almost never do people need more dirt. Almost always they need less dirt in their aquarium. It's not a situation more is better. Ooh, Regina's getting a long coat Chihuahua. I'm jelly. I miss having a 4-pound dog that, I don't know, super sweet, didn't shed much, and yeah, don't get me wrong, I love the dogs I have. I spend time with them every day, not as much as my wife, but every day curl up on the couch or they're on my lap while I'm working, and we've got about that much room for another little 4-pound dog next to me. To paraphrase my buried question, a newly cycled tank with plants only is in effect also a quarantine tank for my fish. Is that a yes or a no? Yeah, I think it is. So you've got a tank, you've set it up, you cycled, it's got plants, and new fish come in. By definition, they're kind of quarantined to that tank as long as you keep them there. The only challenges you face, I find, is if you really needed to use salt or some harsh chemical that killed plants, you're limited by that. But I do that all the time. I find it works out pretty well. And it's when you go to add the next set of fish and you've got fish there, that no longer is kind of serving the quarantine purpose. I had 160 guppy fry at 20. It was mayhem. Oh yeah, it's definitely gonna be work. Best alternative to Easy Green in the UK? I would be buying, if it's available, I would be buying Dennerleigh's. They've got, this is what I hate about companies. Dennerleigh has like, probably like 8 different fertilizers. And there's only the one that I actually recommend. Let me find it. I think it's like V20 or something. Wait, no, it might be S7. Let's see. It's an excellent vitamin and trace element. That might be only trace elements. Let me find it. Why do they make my life so hard? V30 complete. That's what it is. So if it's available in the UK, I would buy Dennerleigh's V30 complete. I think that is the closest thing to an Easy Green you're going to get. Tropica also makes one. I haven't used that one. I've thoroughly tested actually the V30, so I like it. But that's the one that I would recommend if it's available. Why not just dry ferts, NPK, and trace elements? You could. You know, there's always going to be people that recommend that. To me, that's like, well, why not just make food at home? You don't need to go out to eat. I think it's ease. I think it's, maybe I don't want to cook. Maybe I don't want to learn how to cook. And I do think dry fertilizers in general are harder to learn than an all-in-one. That being said, education is the key, and everyone should learn to do what they want to do. So for some people, that'll make all the sense in the world. But then there's people like Dean, knows how to cook, teaches people how to cook, never cooks. Not never cooks, but not as much as you would think for being that good at it. I haven't hung out with Dean in a while. I gotta hit him up and we gotta work on some stuff. I have Dean to cook for me. Dean has only ever cooked for me once, I think. Is that a true statement? Maybe twice. We did the hamburgers the one time. I don't consider avocado or guacamole cooking. Might only ever be the once. They were really good hamburgers. There might be one other one though that I've like blocked out of my memory, but I think my wife has cooked more for Dean. For sure, my wife has cooked more for Dean than Dean has cooked for me. Which is fine. I mean, we spend all our time working most of the time. We're not there just to cook, and we go out to eat a lot. Work real hard, then go out to eat, wind down. New small pond, guppies versus Medaka. Go with Medaka. Medaka are awesome. Someone was asking earlier, why aren't they more popular? We're just lagging behind because of COVID and supply chains and like, here's what I'll say. If you're breeding Medaka now, you'll probably be really happy you are in the next 2 or 3 years. You'll be like, wow, they're just selling really nice. Like we're still on the, not everyone knows that they should have an aquarium dedicated to Medaka rice fish. So, welcome to the NERMS, Jared. Do you ever cook or prepare your foods for your fish, like beef heart? I've tried all that in the past. I never found the reward worth the effort. So I tried, making different shrimp mixes and different beef heart mixes and mixing extra stuff into Repashis and doing my own kind of Repashi stuff. And in the end was always like, yeah, it's more fish food, kind of feeds messier. I did see some articles lately that was showing that, or no, I think it was in Dr. Ashley's talk where different bee pollens and stuff like that, they're finding to be super beneficial. We actually were testing that because the guy that built my store, again, beekeeper, we were actually mixing in bee grubs into Repashi food, and it was like a miracle drug for guppy growth and colors and stuff like that. But it was so absolutely messy to feed. It was like a bomb went off in that tank, but man, could it make some beautiful fish. And it was still kind of a pain to harvest, and it wasn't unlimited quantities and all of that. But, you know, half the hobby is playing around with stuff. Hey, I don't know if anyone's done that. Give it a try. Why not? That's half my hobby. What advice would you give a newbie about the size of their first tank? My official stance is no one should ever buy a tank less than a 29-gallon tank, because that's the biggest or the smallest tank that I find people consider like, I'm going to keep this forever. A lot of times you'll watch people get a 5, a 10, a 20, a 20 long, and they end up getting another tank. It's like, you know what? I want to do a different fish. I want to do something bigger. And at 29 though, usually even if you want more, you'll keep that one because like, yeah, this tank can house a lot of different stuff and it's very versatile. A little more expensive to get up and going, but I think it's got more longevity there for you. Do I ever cook for my dogs? The only thing that I do every once in a while, and this is like 1 out of like 30 feedings, let's be real here, is I'll heat up the food in the microwave. Now my wife will cook for the dogs, and like this yesterday morning, I had an omelet with some lunch meat in it. She will specifically cook extra lunch meat for the dogs to have breakfast also. So she spoils them to death and spoils me to death and is amazing. Whereas I'm like, my wife will basically make a meal, leave it in the fridge, and my job is to heat it up because our doggies don't like it super cold. Now, there is a point to that, because some people will be like, these fools are crazy. They're heating up dog food. My dog doesn't have a problem. I can 100% say, when your dog weighs 3 pounds, 8 ounces, where Sassy, you know, towards the end of her life, very lightweight, her eating cold food, because like I said, we open a can, our dogs are small, they don't eat a whole can, right? So taking it out of the fridge, she would be shivering by the time she was done eating. It was cold enough, and she had such little body mass that that it would actually lower the temperature and she would shiver. So by heating that up, no longer a problem. Does my wife have a single sister? Nope, they are all taken. Where do I rank Daphnia among other foods to feed fish? I think it's real high. Like live Daphnia, in a perfect world where I leave YouTube and I dedicate all my time to things I enjoy, it would be growing Daphnia. I really would love to master Daphnia. It's on that. Someday I'm going to do it. Someday I'm going to do it. Benjamin Blankenship, I figured out how to send one of these. I would like to get German blue rams for a community tank. My heater won't go over 82. Is that okay? Yeah, leave it at 82. You'll be fine. I don't know what size your tank is, but one goes really well. Looks beautiful. Doesn't fight with another one. 2, you go, okay, well, I'm trying to get a pair, and it starts another dynamic. But yeah, you should be fine. Have I ever had success breeding chili rasboras? No, I've not tried, but I also wonder how wicked small those fry are and how much work that's going to take. The only thing I cook is brine shrimp with a light bulb. Yep, that's about me too. So I've been testing I feed my goldfish ground beef. I never saw them attack anything like they did. Is ground beef a good idea? I've seen a lot of people do this kind of stuff, and in general, I can't really say it is worse or better than some other stuff. There's people on both sides going, hey, you can't do that, and other people going, it works fine. And I would say if it seemingly is working really well for you, great. If it is working well, keep an eye out though to make sure it doesn't lead to like, oh geez, this goldfish is really packing on some fat, or ooh, something's going on. It wasn't going on because I was feeding that for 6 months straight. Inherently, I think we should be a little cautious with how much would they eat of that in the wild, right? So I do think in the wild, something like a grass carp or something could find a dead animal in the water, pick at its flesh, and get a little bit of meat in it. That is a far cry from, oh, well, I feed it a quarter pound, or not quarter pound, but a quarter cup of cooked ground beef every day. I don't think any of them are finding that in the wild on a regular basis. So I do think variety is the spice of life. You know, if you go, well, I feed it some ground beef 1 out of every 10 days. I'd probably go, yeah, it probably won't matter one way or the other, honestly. So, but yeah, I think some experimentation, go for it. I started with 2-gallon water plants. Okay. After your show, I now have 2 10s, 20 long, a 25 fish bowl, 55 and a 75. All my fault. Well, I'm glad that can't press charges for that because I'm guilty of that. Aqua Garden Zen, turn it in for the night. We'll see you later, buddy. What's my unicorn fish now that I have a fly river turtle? I don't think I have one really. I definitely have setups that I want to do. Like one of the things I'm thinking about approaching Dean just so he can hit me with the giant I told you so, is I've considered putting in maybe some 125s or some 180s or something. I basically want to create Congo tetra, Tenopoma leaf fish, and some like bottom dweller tank. And I'm missing having more tanks. I don't like taking care of tanks, and I don't like scraping algae, but I'm enjoying the 230, I'm enjoying the 800, the 40s, so maybe I'll replace those with some bigger tanks. Go, yeah, okay, I'm jazzed about this now. We'll see. Has to be the Devil's Hole pupfish. I've toured a place before that had a lot of different pupfish that were very illegal that I couldn't show on camera. That fish room no longer exists. Not from any, nothing ever happened of it. And the way that guy got them was actually someone else passed away. They had called them. The guy went to get that fish room and all that illegal stuff was already there. And, he actually was trying to keep them going. But no, it's not on my got to get that list. I do think I would like to do some anableps at some point, but it's not really like a holy grail type fish. Yeah, I'm not sure what that new thing is, other than there's some tanks I definitely want to set up and have fun with. My Bristlenose Plecos keep breeding like crazy. Should I stop them? What should I do with all these babies? Try and sell them, try and give them away. If you can, splitting them up for a little while is good. The male being trapped fanning the eggs over and over and over and over and over and over again can actually lose a little bit of weight. So, but it takes a lot, it's not just like, 2 spawns. It's like, okay, 22 spawns in a row type of deal. How many containers that keep live fish do you have in my home? 0. In my actual home. Like in this building, lots, but in my actual home, 0. And there definitely are days and stuff like that. Like I'm building a new office so that maybe I could play some video games, do some of my other live streams for like my personal channel, just have some different setups, right? So that way, like let's say like we were talking earlier, let's say my wife went to visit family and it was out of town. I want to be in the house so my dogs can come up and hang out with me and not me be stuck out here working for 10 hours, then go in to see my pets, right? So kind of doing some of that stuff. And but the reason I'm talking about that is like, I kind of want a fish tank, but it's on another level. There's no water up there. I'm just like, I also don't want a fish tank up there. So I do and don't. Like, the last thing I need is another fish tank in my life, and also the thing I need is another fish tank in my life. So it's hard. Local fish stores usually take them and give you credit. Yeah, so if you got a local store, sometimes you can get some credit or money for your bristlenose, especially if there's something like green dragons or super reds. If there's albinos, sometimes they're getting a little too flooded, so you might not get anything, but sometimes you'll get tons. WizKid says, I have a question. Why did my rubber lip pleco and Borneo loach die so quick? So this kind of seems like a pattern. You've got multiple different types of fish dying with some neon tetras. I would say whenever you have lots of different things dying, it comes back to environment, water parameters, something with your setup maybe not being right. Like we could find out like, oh, you never had a heater, or oh, your pH was way off, or whatever that's going to look like. And so I would really focus on creating an ecosystem that's really healthy. Maybe it supports live plants and things seem to be really stable, and getting some help from a local store before proceeding to acquire some new fish. Setting up a 5-gallon fish bowl for fancy tiger shrimps, big brain move? Could be. I am, I could set up, so I have like that 25-gallon bowl that I could set up there. I could set up an all-in-one unit. Maybe that's what I'll do. One of my things that I need to work on this year is putting together an all-in-one aquarium. That might not be the right thing, but an aquarium kit that would be good for bettas and shrimp and maybe trios of guppies and that kind of stuff. One, to sell in our retail store, and then two, to see if it ever made sense to ship them online. I see more and more places shipping tanks online, and I don't see how it makes sense. They inflate the price, there's damages, there's, I'm not sure it makes sense. So, but at least for our own store. And so by testing some of that stuff, maybe that makes sense to set up like a 5 to 8 gallon on my desk or something. What would you give to your local fish club members if you wanted to give back to your members? Fish food? Let me think. What would you give to your local fish club members if you wanted to give back to your members? So I'm taking this as you're asking me, you have a local club and you wanted to share something nice with the other people in your club. That's how I'm taking this question. So if I'm taking it wrong, my bad. Honestly, what I think the best things that I've ever seen happen, the things that I've been most excited about, are when people bring in fry. So some of the things that I got really into that were really special to me early in the hobby, we had someone breed koi, and they brought in all these koi that were like this big. They're literally like an inch. And he had them in a bucket at the back of the thing. And then there was an announcement at the end like, hey, go get some baby koi if you want them. Grow them up in an aquarium. If you don't want them at the end, you can bring them back to me or whatever. And we'll do a little grow out competition. Now everyone pretty much took a few baby koi home because it was fun, right? I've also seen it done with other types of fish. And I think that's one of the best things you can do, because people are getting a locally bred fish. If you have that ability, it doesn't really cost you a whole lot, but it has an intrinsic value. I think that's nice. And it shows that you put some thought and care and all of that into it, because people are so used to, why are you giving this food away? Or why are you giving, it must not be good. Where, oh, this fish, oh, you're giving away cherry barbs. Well, yeah, I could use 6 cherry barbs. That'd be cool, right? So I think breeding something like that is a good thing to give back, because you can get people from all walks of life who are interested. Rich, poor, young, old, advanced in the hobby, not advanced in the hobby. Everyone can go, oh, yeah, I wouldn't mind having some of those again. I haven't done that in years. How old do my bristlenose have to be to start breeding? I put them at the 12 to 14 month age. Now, you can get them going a little bit earlier, but I find that they got to be like a year. You order big tanks online? I don't. My big tanks are made locally. Yeah, so everything big is made locally in Seattle, and then I order from a different manufacturer, and they ship pallets of tanks to me at a time for things like the retail store. Which still is not very economical, by the way. Shipping tanks is just not, it's not good. They don't really nest, they don't, yeah. And I only do that with acrylic tanks, by the way. I don't do any glass in shipping. And acrylic is naturally more expensive. I mean, maybe I could maybe do that. The other thing too is I feel like if you're the person selling a tank, you're going to run into so many more people that have never set up an aquarium before. And so to do it right, you're like, I sold them a $150 aquarium. You might have to give them $300 in support on how to learn the hobby. And so it's kind of those like, well, that's much better suited in a store. If you come in and buy it from the store, I can one-on-one with you. I didn't have to charge you a ridiculous amount of shipping, so I actually made $20 on the sale. Then I can sell you the other things you need. Because online, what happens all the time is someone will buy a thing, then they go, oh, said I needed this. Oh, it's cheaper on Amazon. They buy it from Amazon. And so it doesn't always work out to be a break-even or a profitable thing when selling tanks online. So that can be a difficult proposition to remain, I guess profitable is the right word. Got about 3 minutes left. Where can I find L46 zebra plecos? Look for local stores, but right now there's so few limited flights and stuff coming in the country. I would say everything, to find anything has been reduced by like 40% capacity. So it's probably just going to be harder. I would probably grab some, maybe over the next year if you can. Keep an eye out for them. But with everything stressed, right? Employee wages going up, air freight going up, less things in stock, less money being made. There's just less money laying around to go, hey, let's invest in high-end zebra plecos. Like, let's take that risk. That's not a good risk to take when other things aren't secured yet. So like a guy like me might go, ooh, should I spend $1,500 and bring in zebra plecos? No, I should buy $1,500 more of air pumps so that I don't run out. Trying to stock up on things, whereas like the zebra plecos, they're not a guaranteed sell, and they're alive, and I got to make sure they stay alive, and they're high maintenance, and all of those types of things. What kind of bottom feeders thrive in 8.0 pH? Look up Synodontis catfish. Definitely Petricola by far. Stay small and are great. What plants should I buy from the co-op for colony breeding rice fish in a summer tub? I would buy. So what I've been spawning them in my tub, Pogostemon stellatus octopus. What else would I use? Maybe some water sprite. Mostly those two, honestly. Guppy grass would work too. What I don't like about guppy grass is when I want to harvest eggs, if you pick up guppy grass, a lot of times it's so fragile it breaks. Whereas, like the pogo, it's got more heft to it. So you can kind of grab that and move it. And that's the easiest way to propagate the rice fish, is going, hey, let me grab this, and like even if you do it all in one pond, you can have a floating bowl and move some into there. They'll hatch out, move the plant back in, and now you've got the babies, and you feed them up for a little bit before you move them somewhere. Someone should make a nesting tank, even if it's something smaller like a 10-gallon. Well, that's what rimless tanks. One of the reasons rimless tanks got so popular is because without the rim, you can go, oh, look at this, 30-gallon, 25-gallon, 20-gallon, 18-gallon, 17-gallon, 10-gallon, 5-gallon, 2-gallon, 1-gallon, half-gallon, and they nest all the way in, and because there's no tops to restrict that, that's one of the reasons they got so popular, just because it became more economical to ship them from overseas into the country. That being said, they're still highly breakable in transit and other things, and I like aquariums to have tops. It's just better for the fish, in my opinion. But yeah, that is like one of the economic reasons that rimless tanks grown to as much popularity as they have. They also look good, and there's other cosmetic reasons, but there's lots of things that are awesome but aren't super popular just because they didn't make economic sense. Monster Aquarium in NYC has L46 for $90 and they ship. There's maybe a lead for you. I like your idea about the give back fish, but since we have excess funds, I think gift cards would be nice. Agree? So yes, if you're talking about like you're on the board of a fish club, my personal bias, now I've been on the board of directors for a club, I own a store, blah, 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 factor all these things in. I do think the best way to spend money outside of improving your events, maybe you're buying better video equipment or microphones for speakers, like assuming you've got all that stuff that people are using on the monthly meeting and stuff dialed in and working well. If you have extra funds after that, I think the best thing you can do is invest in your local stores, and gift cards are a great way to do that. You go and you buy a $50 gift card, you find a way to give that out to the members. So now you've got income for the store, right? You've got a good freebie for the member, and you're building that relationship. So when it comes time to run an auction or you need money in the future, that store is more likely to donate. Now, the caveat I will say, the one thing I don't agree with is a lot of times you'll find like, well, if we buy from one, we got to buy from all the stores. And so you'll go and you'll buy 10 gift cards from 10, we buy 10 gift cards, one from each store, and you'll have like 2 or 3 stores that everyone loves. And then you'll have like 7 other stores where like, oh, that one's way out of the way. Oh, that one's kind of a saltwater store. Yeah, that one, I guess I'll buy fish food from there because their fish aren't very good. And so by trying to be fair, you end up going like you give away 3 amazing gift cards and 7 kind of cruddy ones, and it's not as good for your membership. And I realize the goal is to be fair, but you also have to be fair to your membership. If people just know that these 3 stores are the good stores in our area, go buy 10 gift cards, maybe you go 3, 3, and 3, and 1 from another one. You now have 9 happy members and 1 other one. And if the other stores go, well, why not me? Then you can let them know, like, oh, well, we're a freshwater store and you're a saltwater store, or a freshwater club and you're a saltwater store, or your livestock's not very good. Work on that, and next year, by all means, we'll buy gift cards from you. But I find that all the time where you get like, people will pick like, oh, come on down, yeah, we pulled your raffle ticket, grab the one you want. And then you'll get to the bottom 3, and you'll literally see people like win and be like, yeah, I'll pass. I don't even know those stores. Yeah. And they'll let someone else. And the problem is they kind of filter down to like maybe a new hobbyist that doesn't know that store's not that good. Now you've got a newer hobbyist going to a store that's not that good. You've literally, from a club standpoint, kind of set them up for failure. And that's like, I think, a real failure of spending the funds that a club has amassed. You really want to make sure that it's used in a way where everyone's happy, everyone's having fun, it benefits the most people, benefits the right kind of stuff, promotes the hobby. And I definitely watch, though, that like, yep, got to be fair. Well, as long as they're all, of the same quality, be fair. If you're not, yep. All right, 7:04, I got to eat dinner. I want to open my own store, support veterans with PTSD. It helped me so much. Imagine being able to be an aquarium co-op vendor. Yeah, I would tell you that's a horrible plan. And what I mean by that is open your own store and have it be a thriving store. Then, when you have a thriving store, go nuts with the PTSD community and help a billion people. What I hate to see, though, is I hate to see people start up a new store of any hobby. And they're like, I'm going to support this niche community. And by doing that, you do that so well that you service the general community not very well. And you end up going out of business because you didn't grab up the local market around you that you need as the base to support your niche product. not product, but like interest. And it's kind of the same thing. No matter what I'm passionate in, I get to leverage all of the kind of business avenues we have, all the membership, all of that, and funnel it towards things I think are important. If I had started up and I only ever talked about how I want to help people in Peru and wild caught fish and the rainforest, I would alienate so many people that I would have never gotten off the ground. But now that I've gotten off the ground, I can start meandering that way and doing some good. So that's my honest advice is don't forget why you started it. I started Aquarium Co-op so that I could have a sustainable fish store, that all of my employees could live a life, have health insurance, buy a home at some point, all of these things, try to promote from within, do the best fish store that I think I can do, and try my hardest. Remain true to that. But know that on the journey there, you will have tough decisions. You have to be profitable. You have to, make sure you can get to that point and not just be like, well, I started with an ideal. I pay every employee $1 billion. I went out of business in 4 days, right? Like there's obviously a ramp up period, and the more foundation you can build, the more good employees you have, and all of those things will lead to your success. And so know that a lot of things are built over many years. For instance, this YouTube channel, people will see people, like I got 1 million followers in 3 months. We haven't hit 1 million, and we've been releasing videos for 8 years. So some of it is a very long timeline. Not that 8 years is the longest timeline, but it's clearly a lot longer than 3 months, right? So have realistic expectations and go at it from, I want to make a profitable business, and when I get those profits, I want to do this thing. And then you're you're much more likely, I should say, maybe not highly likely, more likely to be able to accomplish what you set out to do, as opposed to going too hard on one thing that didn't necessarily help the bottom line. All right. For those that were asking, yes, this is where you can answer or ask questions. You can ask down in the comments down below. We'll take a look. We'll also have another member show on Friday. We'll answer as much as we can. See you next week. Ask questions there. Talks amongst each other. All of those things are where you ask questions. Now, where they'll be answered by me, that's, I do as many as I can each day. Some days that's 100. Some days that's none. Some days like today, it'll be a lot. So thanks for hanging out. Thanks to all the new members. Thanks for Kyle and J.W. Carlson sneaking at the last minute. Lots of you joined during the stream. Thank you for all of that. Hopefully we'll see you at Aquashella. If not, we'll see you at another show. If not, we'll see you online. If not, in the comments section. So I'm out. Time to go pet the doggies and eat some dinner. It's 7 o'clock. Ooh, I'm running 8 minutes into it. And so you'll likely get to cut through all the Greater Seattle Aquarium Society are doing a talk with Rainbow Fish, but they're doing like business stuff, not business, like awards and stuff. So I'm putting the link in the chat. You can go watch that. It only stays up for like the first 24 hours. So if you don't watch it like now, it'll be gone. Not that I have no idea if the presentation is going to be absolutely amazing or not, but just know a lot of people will go, ooh, I'm going to watch that on Thursday. It won't be there on Thursday. Like they only have it live for the members, and anyone can watch, by the way, but it only stays up while it's kind of live and a little bit afterwards, and then it goes away. So if you want to watch another talk about rainbow fish, head on over to that link I put and have a good time. If they ask where you came from Aquarium Co-op. I'm good friends. It's the part of the club that I used to be on the board of. And yeah, enjoy. Education's always good. I'll probably have, an earbud in or something and listen to it a little bit and, do what I do. So we'll see you guys around. Thank you so much. And see you Friday.